When my nephew whispered his wish to me that night, I froze. It was the kind of wish no adult should ever hear. And yet, I said yes. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. And if you're already judging me, that's okay. Because if I heard someone else say that, I probably would too. But life doesn't play out like the stories we tell ourselves in our heads. It doesn't follow clean rules or clear lines. It's messy. It's emotional. And sometimes we do things we swore we never would. Just because for the first time in years, we feel seen, heard, wanted. Have you ever been there? Have you ever woken up next to someone you thought you loved and realized they stopped seeing you a long time ago? That was my life. I wasn't living, I was surviving. Washing the same dishes, folding the same clothes, cooking the same meals, while feeling more and more like a ghost in my own home. And then Ethan came to stay with us. My sister's boy, 19 years old. Quiet, respectful, grieving. He lost his mom, my sister, just a few months before. We all said he could stay as long as he needed. I thought I was helping him heal. I thought I was being the adult, the responsible one. But sometimes, two broken people don't make each other whole. They just fit together in the most dangerous way. This isn't a story I'm proud of. This isn't a story that ends with a neat little bow. It's raw. It's emotional. And it hurts. But it's real. And maybe that's why I'm telling it. Not for sympathy, not for forgiveness. But because maybe you've been there too. Maybe not the same way, but maybe you felt that ache. That silence. That longing to be touched, even if it's only emotionally. Even if it's wrong. So, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever had thoughts that scared you, or moments you can't take back, you're not alone. Subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga because stories like these, they're not just drama. They're emotional confessions. Real, complicated, human. And if you've ever been drawn into something you didn't expect, leave a comment. Tell me what you felt, what you would have done. Because when Ethan whispered that wish to me, that soft little voice trembling in the dark, I felt something shift inside me. And in that moment, I didn't think. I didn't weigh the consequences. I just said yes. I wasn't the kind of woman who expected grand things. Not anymore. Not after so many years of marriage where even the basics felt like a stretch. Mark, my husband, he used to be different. Back when we first met, he could make me laugh so hard I cried. Back then, I mattered to him. At least, I thought I did. But time has this quiet way of dulling everything. Now, he barely looks up from his phone when I walk into the room. His eyes are always glued to a screen, football scores, stocks, work emails. And me? I became part of the furniture. Useful. Familiar. Taken for granted. We have 2 kids. Teenagers. They're wrapped up in their own worlds, headphones in, doors shut. They love me, I know they do. But they don't see me either. Most days, I just went through the motions. Laundry. Groceries. Dinner on the table by 6. Smile when spoken to. Keep quiet when not. And then came Ethan. My nephew. 19. The last time I'd seen him, he was a boy. Now, he wasn't. When my sister passed, we didn't even hesitate. We told him to come stay with us. Finish school. Get on his feet. Start over. He arrived with a single duffel bag and eyes that looked too old for his age. Grief changes people. It matures them, sometimes too fast. From day one, he was thoughtful. He helped carry groceries without being asked. He asked if I needed help before I could even say the words. He listened. Actually listened. Something I hadn't felt in years. The house didn't change. The silence between Mark and me stayed the same. But suddenly, I was different. It started small. Ethan would ask me how I was. Not just in passing. He'd look at me and wait for an answer. Sometimes we'd sit in the kitchen late at night, both unable to sleep. He'd talk about his mom. I'd listen. And for the first time in a long while, someone was talking to me like I mattered. Mark never joined us. He was either asleep on the couch or locked in his office, headphones in, game on, mind elsewhere. I told myself it was harmless. Just two people, family, finding comfort in conversation. Nothing more. But I started to notice things. Little things. Ethan's eyes lingered just a moment longer than they should have. The way he'd glance at me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way he smiled when I laughed at something he said. Warm. Gentle. Too gentle. And I noticed something else too. How I looked forward to those talks. How I started brushing my hair before coming downstairs. How I chose a different perfume, the one I hadn't worn in years. I felt guilty. But I also felt alive. That scared me. The house stayed quiet, like always. But now that quiet was charged with something else. Unspoken things. Unfelt touches. Uncrossed lines, barely. There were moments. Like when our hands brushed accidentally as we reached for the same bowl. Or when I caught him staring, and instead of looking away, he held my gaze. It should have made me pull back. But it didn't. Instead, I found myself lingering, too. Just for a second. Just long enough to feel something. And the worst part? I knew exactly what was happening. And I didn't stop it. Because in a house full of people, I had never felt more alone. Until he walked in. And started seeing me again. Not as a mother. Not as a wife. But as a woman. That realization, it changed everything. And deep down, I think he knew it too. It was raining that night. Not just a soft drizzle, but the kind of steady rain that taps against the windows like a whisper you can't ignore. The kind that makes everything feel a little heavier. A little closer to something you're not ready to face. I had just finished cleaning the kitchen. Mark was upstairs, probably asleep with the TV still on. The kids were in their rooms, doors closed, lights off. I didn't expect anyone to be awake. I was just wandering, really. I don't even know why I went into the living room. But there he was. Ethan. Sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, the soft flicker of an old black and white movie dancing on the screen. One I used to love, back when I still let myself love things. He looked up and smiled. Not startled. Like he'd been waiting. He patted the spot next to him. Couldn't sleep either? He asked. I shook my head. He smiled again, softer this time. Come sit. This part's funny. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I sat. We didn't talk much at first. Just watched. The sound of the rain outside and the gentle hum of the TV filling the silence between us. Then, little by little, it started. A line from the movie made me laugh. He laughed too. Not because the line was funny, but because I laughed. He told me it reminded him of his mom. I told him it reminded me of when I used to feel something other than tired. And just like that, we were talking. About things that mattered. Not the weather. Not chores. But loss. Regret. Loneliness. He told me he missed having someone who asked how his day was. Not out of habit, but because they actually cared. I told him I missed that too. And then he looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You deserve someone who listens to you." I felt it in my chest. Like someone had reached in and touched something I forgot was still alive. I didn't know what to say. I just looked at him. And in that moment, it wasn't about age. Or blood. Or anything else the world would scream at us. It was about two people. In a quiet house. Both aching to be heard. I went to bed that night with my heart thudding in my ears. Not because of what was said. But because of what wasn't. And then a few days later, he cooked dinner. I came home from running errands, and there he was in the kitchen, apron on, sleeves rolled up, stirring something on the stove like he'd been doing it his whole life. The smell hit me first. Something warm. Something real. Something that made me feel like someone was waiting for me. He looked up and grinned. I found your mom's old cookbook in the cupboard. Thought I'd try one of her recipes. Mark hadn't cooked for me in years. Not for a birthday. Not for an anniversary. Not even when I was sick. I stood there, holding a grocery bag, blinking like an idiot. Because no one had done something like that for me in. I don't even know how long. We ate together. Just the two of us. The kids were out. Mark was working late. And it felt like home. Like what I imagined home should feel like. Warm. Present. Safe. After we ate, he cleaned the dishes. He asked me if I wanted tea. He poured it for me exactly how I liked it, 2 sugars, no cream. I didn't remember telling him that. I sat there with my tea, watching him dry a plate, and I heard this question echo in my mind so loud I almost said it out loud. Why is my 19-year-old nephew the only one who sees me? I didn't have an answer. Not that night. Not now. But I felt something shifting inside me. Something dangerous. Something soft. Something I wasn't sure I could stop. I'm not stupid. I know how this looks. How it feels. And I know what someone on the outside would say. What I would have said, if I weren't living it. But when was the last time I felt desired? I don't mean just touched. I mean seen. Looked at like I was more than the woman who folds the laundry and refills the coffee and remembers to buy everyone's shampoo but forgets to buy her own. I wasn't looking for this. God, I swear I wasn't. But when someone walks into your world and looks at you like you matter, really matter, it messes with you. Even if it's wrong. Even if everything in your head is screaming to stop. I started feeling it in the smallest ways. Ethan would help without being asked. Vacuuming. Taking out the trash. He'd compliment my cooking, really compliment it, like he actually tasted it. Not just, yeah, it's fine, like Mark always muttered without even looking up. One morning, I cut my hair. Just a trim. Something to feel fresh. Mark didn't notice. Didn't say a word. Ethan? He looked up from his cereal and smiled. You look good today. For words. That's all it took. And just like that, I was floating, hating that I felt good. But I did. I caught myself picking out a different blouse the next day. A little softer. A little more fitted. Not too much, nothing obvious. But enough that I knew I was doing it for someone other than myself. And then came the shame. Like a wave that crashes after the tide's pulled too far out. I'd stand in front of the mirror and ask myself, what are you doing? This is your nephew. This isn't right. But then I'd hear Mark's voice in my head. That flat, tired tone. The same voice he used the night of our anniversary when I brought out the wine, hoping we'd spend some time alone. You know what he said? Can we just do this another night? I'm really tired. He forgot it was our anniversary. Again. I'd planned a meal. Put on makeup. Lit candles. And he walked right past all of it. Didn't even blink. I blew out those candles myself. I sat there in the dining room, eating cold pasta alone. No music. No laughter. No love. So tell me, when someone shows up in your life and notices the little things, remembers how you take your tea, tells you you're beautiful without needing anything from you in return, how do you not fall a little? I didn't want to. I swear I didn't. But Ethan made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. And the worst part? I let myself feel it. I started waking up with butterflies. Not for him. But for how he made me feel. Alive. And every time I caught myself smiling when he walked into the room, every time I looked forward to the sound of his voice, I hated myself just a little more. I'd go back and forth inside my own mind. 1 second, telling myself it was innocent. The next, reminding myself it wasn't. It was like walking a tightrope in the dark. Trying to balance between the person I was supposed to be and the one I was becoming. I'd watch him laugh with the kids. Help clean without being asked. Ask me about my day and really listen. And I'd think, this is what it should feel like. But then I'd remember who he was. What I was. And I'd feel this sick weight settle in my chest. I kept trying to push it down. To chalk it up to grief. His. Mine. Both of ours. But deep down, I knew. I knew it wasn't just about feeling appreciated. It was about feeling wanted. And I hadn't felt that in a long, long time. Too long. It happened late one night. The kind of night where the world feels quieter than usual. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the ground outside still glistened under the porch light. Everyone else was asleep. I couldn't. Sleep, I mean. My thoughts were too loud. My heart felt unsettled. I found myself in the kitchen again, hands wrapped around a mug I didn't even remember making. I was just standing there, staring out the window like the dark could offer answers. And then Ethan walked in. He didn't say anything at first. Just walked over, barefoot and sleepy-eyed, and leaned against the counter beside me. I asked if I woke him. He shook his head, said he hadn't been sleeping much lately. We stood in silence for a moment. Then he whispered, almost like he was afraid of hearing the words himself, "I miss her so much, it hurts to breathe." I didn't say anything, just let the weight of his words settle between us. He kept going. "I dream about her all the time. Then I wake up and I'm here. And she's not. And everything just feels wrong." His voice cracked. I didn't think. I just moved toward him. I wrapped my arms around him, arms that were supposed to protect, to soothe. And he sank into me, like he'd been holding his grief in for too long. It wasn't anything inappropriate. Not in the beginning. Just a hug. But it lingered. Longer than it should have. And something shifted. His hand moved to the small of my back, gentle, unsure. My breath caught. I pulled away quickly. Too quickly. I didn't say a word. I just backed up, heart pounding, and walked upstairs. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, the house felt different. Not louder. Not busier. Just charged. We didn't talk about what happened. Didn't mention the hug. Didn't look each other in the eye. But I felt it. Every time I walked into a room and he was there. Every time our shoulders brushed in the hallway. Every time his eyes flicked up to meet mine, and then away just as fast. There was something unspoken now. Heavy. Real. That afternoon, I found a note on my pillow. Folded neatly. My name written on the outside in his handwriting. I sat down to read it. It said, "Thank you for being there last night. For letting me feel safe. I don't know what I would do without you. Sometimes I wish things were different." No signature. Just those words. And the way they sat in my hands made my fingers tremble. I read it 3 times. Then I tucked it away, into the back of my nightstand drawer. Beneath a stack of old receipts and expired coupons. Like hiding it would make it mean less. But it didn't. It meant more. The next few days were filled with small moments. Tiny blurs in the boundaries I'd always believed were unshakable. I'd reach for something on the counter, and he'd reach at the same time, our hands brushing again. He'd glance at me across the dinner table, and I'd pretend not to notice. But I did. We were both pretending. Pretending that everything was still normal. That we hadn't crossed some invisible line in that kitchen. That a single embrace hadn't undone everything we thought we understood about each other. Mark didn't notice anything. Of course he didn't. He was buried in his usual distractions. Work. Phone. TV. Repeat. He'd ask me questions without looking up. Answer me with half a grunt. Meanwhile, Ethan noticed everything. He noticed when I changed the way I did my hair. He noticed when I wore that soft gray sweater I hadn't worn in years. He noticed when I was quiet and asked why. One night, I opened my drawer, pulled out the note again. Just held it. Read it under the dim light of the lamp beside our bed while Mark snored next to me. And I felt more alone in that bed than I did with Ethan 2 feet away in the hallway. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about grief. Or loneliness. Or attention. This was about connection. Something I hadn't felt in years. And the more I tried to deny it, the stronger it got. The way his presence lingered long after he left a room. The way my stomach flipped when I heard his footsteps on the stairs. The guilt was always there. But so was the pull. And in that tension, we stayed. Both of us. Balanced on the edge of something neither of us wanted to name. But we both felt it. We knew. It was only a matter of time. It had been a heavy day. Storm clouds had been gathering since morning, dark and swollen, like the sky had been holding something in, just like I had. By late afternoon, the thunder started. Low and distant at first. Then closer. Sharper. The kids were spending the night with friends. Mark had gone out for drinks with some coworkers. Said he'd probably be late. Didn't ask if I wanted to come. Didn't kiss my cheek goodbye. Didn't even look up when he left. It was just me in the house. And Ethan. The rain came down hard that evening. Thick, rhythmic, slapping against the windows like it was trying to break in. And then, everything went dark. The power flicked off with a pop. Lights gone. TV dead. Just the sound of the storm and the quiet of the house. I lit a few candles. Opened a bottle of wine. I didn't expect him to come downstairs. But I guess neither of us could sleep. I was sitting at the kitchen table, barefoot, legs pulled up under me. The wine glass was warm in my hand. And then I heard him. His voice soft in the hallway. "You okay?" I looked up. He was standing there in a t-shirt and sweatpants, hair tousled, eyes catching the candlelight in that way that makes everything feel too close. Too real. I nodded. Poured him a glass. He sat across from me. We didn't say much at first. We didn't need to. The storm outside spoke for us. Loud, raging, unapologetic. And inside, it felt exactly the same. We drank. Laughed once or twice, that nervous kind of laughter you use when you don't know what else to do with the tension pressing down on your chest. Then, after a long silence, he said it. His voice barely above a whisper. Like he wasn't sure he was allowed to speak it out loud. "I just want to feel close to someone again." He looked away, then back. Just once. My whole body went still. The kind of stillness that comes when everything inside you is suddenly screaming. Torn. Because part of me, the part that had raised him, protected him, promised to be his safe place, that part said no. But the other part, the woman in me, the one who had spent so long aching to be seen, to be touched, to be held like she mattered, that part leaned forward. My heart was pounding. My mouth went dry. I stared at him. And all I could think was, why does this feel more real than anything I've had in years? He didn't move. Didn't push. Didn't even look hopeful. Just honest. And lonely. Like me. My lips parted before my mind could catch up. I heard the word slip out of me. Okay. Just that. One word. Soft. Shaky. But it held everything. His breath caught. Mine did too. For a second, we just sat there, locked in that moment where everything changed. Where the rules shattered. Where silence became permission. I could still hear the rain. Still see the flicker of candlelight dancing across his face. Still feel the weight of every decision I was making in that breath. I wish I could tell you I pulled away. That I remembered who I was, what I was. That I ran upstairs and shut the door. But I didn't. Because I wanted it too. Not the act. Not the crossing of some moral line. I wanted to feel close to someone again. Just once. And that night, with the world outside crashing down, and the house wrapped in darkness, I leaned in. And I said yes. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I don't even remember falling asleep. I was still in the same clothes. Still smelled like wine and candle wax and rain. The sheets were cold beside me. Mark hadn't come home until late. I heard the garage door sometime past midnight, followed by the creak of his footsteps upstairs. He didn't say a word when he came in. Didn't notice anything. Didn't ask. I laid there in the dark, still as stone, eyes wide open. Heart racing. Mind trying to rewind time that wouldn't rewind. And in the soft blue light of morning, the guilt came. It didn't slam into me all at once. It came in slow waves. Quiet. Drowning. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Not that day. Not the day after either. I tried to act normal. Tried to smile when the kids came home. Tried to keep my hands from shaking when I poured cereal or folded towels. But something was off. Inside me, everything felt crooked. Like nothing would sit where it used to. And Ethan? He barely looked at me. He'd walk into a room, glance my way, and then pretend to be focused on something else. His phone. His textbook. A glass of water that didn't need refilling. He was quiet. Quieter than usual. But it wasn't grief this time. It was distance. Awkwardness. Maybe shame. I don't know. And I avoided him, too. I couldn't help it. Every time I heard his footsteps down the hall, I'd duck into another room. Every time he entered the kitchen, I suddenly remembered something I needed from the garage. I couldn't meet his eyes, but I watched him when he wasn't looking. I studied his face at dinner. Tried to read his silence. Wondered if he hated me now. Or worse, if he didn't. Mark noticed something. Not everything. Just enough. He asked me one night, casually, without looking up from the TV, "You okay? You've been kinda quiet." I said I was fine. Just tired. Blamed it on the storm. Blamed it on the weather. Blamed it on anything but what it really was. He nodded, already half lost in a basketball game. Didn't press. Didn't even look at me. And that should have made me feel relieved. But all it did was make the guilt louder. A few days later, I found another note. This one wasn't on my pillow. It was slipped into the pocket of my sweater, the one I always left draped over the back of the kitchen chair. I didn't find it until later that night. I was cleaning up after dinner, reaching into the pocket for a tissue. And there it was. Folded. Small. Familiar handwriting. I stood in the laundry room to read it where no one could see me. I didn't mean to ruin things. I just wanted to matter to someone. "I'm sorry." Just that. No greeting. No name. No signature. But I knew. My fingers went numb. The room felt too small. Too quiet. I sat down on the floor right there next to the dryer and read the note again. And again. And again. The words didn't change. But the way they made me feel did. Because in those few lines, I saw everything. His pain. His confusion. His longing. And my failure. I was supposed to protect him. To comfort him. To be the adult, the steady one, the safe place. But instead, I let my loneliness blur everything. And now, neither of us could breathe right. Later that night, I took the note with me into the bathroom. Turned on the shower to hide the sound. And I cried. Not quiet tears. Not polite ones. The kind that shake you from the inside. That choke you. That make your knees weak. I sat on the floor of the tub, knees pulled to my chest, the note clutched tight in my hand, so tight it wrinkled, softened, nearly tore. And I cried because I didn't know how to undo it. I didn't know how to take it back. I didn't know if I wanted to. I just knew something had broken. And no one else even knew it was broken. Only me. And him. And the silence between us, thick, sharp, and full of things we couldn't say. And in that silence, I stayed. What kind of woman does this? What kind of aunt? Those words have echoed in my mind every day since. Sometimes loud. Sometimes just a whisper under the noise of everything else. But always there. I keep asking myself, was I grieving? Was I desperate? Was I just selfish? I think about my sister a lot lately. Her voice, her laugh, the way she used to call me out when I was being too soft. She trusted me. I remember holding her hand in that hospital room, making a promise I meant with everything in me. That I'd look after Ethan. That I'd keep him safe. That I'd be the person he could always count on. And I failed her. Because instead of being his safe place, I let my own pain blur the lines. I let my need for comfort outweigh his need for protection. He was 19. Technically an adult. But grief doesn't respect age. And neither does loneliness. So now I sit with this question I can't escape. Was it love? Or was it something darker? Because it felt tender. It felt real. It felt like two people, both drowning, reaching for each other in the dark. And for a moment, we found air. But that doesn't make it right. Was he truly mature? Or was he just wounded? Was he reaching for me because I was there? Or because he didn't know where else to put all that pain? And what about me? Was I reaching for him because he reminded me of something I'd lost? Because he made me feel seen? Or was I just hungry? Hungry for touch. For connection. For something that reminded me I was still alive. I think I confused his need for love with permission. I think I mistook his kindness for desire. And I let myself believe it was okay. Just once. Just that night. But nothing that matters happens just once. There's always an after. He left for college a few weeks later. Packed his bags quietly. Hugged the kids. Said thank you to Mark. Looked me in the eyes and said, "Take care of yourself, okay?" And that was it. We've never spoken about it. Not once. Not even in a glance. The day after he left, I opened my nightstand drawer and found both his notes. Still folded. Still waiting. I almost threw them away. I should have. But I didn't. They're still there now. tucked beneath old receipts and birthday cards I never mailed. Two little pieces of paper that hold everything I can't say out loud. Sometimes I take them out, run my fingers over the creases, read the words again. Try to figure out who I was in that moment. Try to understand how I got there. But there's no neat answer. No clean ending. Just questions that don't go away. I want to believe I was trying to comfort him. That I was trying to give him something soft in a world that had gone hard. But the truth is, I don't know who I was trying to help more, him or me. All I know is, he had a wish. And I gave it to him. But at what cost? Would you have said yes? If it were you. In that quiet kitchen, with the storm outside and the emptiness inside growing louder by the second, would you have done what I did? Or would you have walked away? I've played that night over in my head so many times. Trying to rewrite it. Trying to understand it. Trying to figure out if it was love, or just the ache of two lonely people mistaking pain for permission. Was it compassion? Or was it a betrayal, wrapped in grief? I don't have the answer. Not really. I only have the memory. And the silence that came after. But maybe you do. Maybe you've been in a moment like that, not the same, but close enough to understand. A moment where the lines blurred, and all you wanted was to be seen, held, chosen. If you've ever been there, please tell me. Please leave a comment. Because I need to know I'm not the only one who's crossed a line they never meant to touch. Not out of lust. Not out of desire. But out of hunger for something simple. For closeness. For care. For a version of yourself that feels alive again. Loneliness doesn't knock. It seeps in. Quietly. Softly. So gently, you don't notice it at first. But it builds. It grows. And if you're not careful, it can make you say yes to things you never imagined yourself saying yes to. So if you're listening, if this story made your chest ache, or your stomach twist, or your heart whisper me too, you're not alone. Subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga for more stories like this, real, raw, and haunting. Not because they're perfect, but because they're human. And leave a comment below. Your words could be the closure someone else is still searching for. Maybe even mine.